Hello, everybody, and welcome to the last webinar of the HACSA webinar series for 2020. I'm delighted to welcome you all here today. The African diaspora is both huge and diverse. People of African descent populate every inhabited continent and are even the majority in a number of countries outside Africa itself. Indeed, in the Caribbean, people of African descent dominate all the Caribbean islands, and I'm delighted to say that today we shall be joined by some of our Caribbean brothers and sisters. The African diaspora has grown and spread for a number of reasons, including going to study and for education, the brain drain, migration, for economic and political reasons, and the transatlantic slave trade. From well before the era of fast and accessible global travel, members of the African diaspora have sought to return to the continent. Reverse migration is, however, on the rise, especially among new generations seeking their roots and new opportunities, and for those who wish to retire back in Africa. HACSA is at the forefront of changing global perceptions of Africa, African prosperity, Africa's potential and opportunities, and of advocating the benefits of connecting and reuniting Africans on the continent and in the diaspora. Our panel members today all have different perspectives of being members of the diaspora and going back home to Africa. We are delighted today to have panelists from Ivory Coast, Lorraine Kwasi-Olsen, from Nigeria, Adewale Ajadi, from Atlanta, Georgia, Shawn Colo, who currently lives in Ghana, and Julian Owusu in Ghana, who is the Managing Director of Fidelity Bank. I'll give the panelists the opportunity to introduce themselves more, and you can find their biographies on our website at www.thehacsa.org. So my question to our panelists today is whether they have experienced or been victims of systemic racism and what challenges and delights they experienced on their return back to Africa. We will start with Lorraine Kwasi. Lorraine, please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, where you live, and please answer the question.
Thank you, Your Excellency. So I'm Lorraine Kwasi-Olsen. I am a financial services expert. I've worked for more than 10 years in private equity in Paris. Before, I was based in London, where I was working for Lehman Brothers, and I've relocated to the continent 4 years ago. I was responsible for the regional office of one of the leading private equity funds, which is called Amethyst, and which I left in July. And today I'm launching my own venture, which is an holding company dedicated to incubating and accelerating made in Africa luxury and premium brands. So first question, whether have experienced racism in the past? I would say yes. When I was in Paris, especially, it's not a form of racism. I would call it ignorance. So people have prejudices on the way they see us, on the way they think about us, and on the way they think we lived. And because I was in a certain kind of environment, people tend to tell me, but you are different. You're more like us, you know, like French people. And because I was educated in, well, the best school, and I've worked and lived like everywhere in the world. So every time I was faced with those prejudices, the answer was like, okay, but we're not talking about you because you're different. And that's part of the reason also why I decided to relocate to the continent. The second form of racism is actually what we call in France en français, plafond de verre, so the glass ceiling. I was working in a company where the management was male denominated and white. And although I was experienced, I couldn't be promoted to partner, for example. So I think at some point we need to write our own story and to tell our story. So that's the reason also why I've decided to launch that new venture in the continent. And I think it's one of the best decisions I've made, because not only I'm working with people who are promoting what we have as the most valuable as a resource, so our creativity, so the continent creativity, but also I'm supporting a cause which will change the narrative. So today, my ambition, my goal, and all my actions are really driven by the fact that I would like to show to the face of the world that us African are excellence, we have our tradition, our heritage, but we're competent, and that we can create things of very powerful, I would say, outreach from our continents. And I will be pleased to further detail it at a later stage. But to answer your question, Your Excellency, I'm very pleased to have decided to relocate to Abidjan. I'm really pleased to have experienced my Africanity from that base and to be able to travel all around the continent. And I'm very pleased to be an ambassador, not only of my continent, my country, but the 54 countries of the continent, and promoting that new story and to be the face of the new generation to the face of the world. Thank you.
Fantastic, Lorraine. Thank you so much for that passionate start. We really feel you. And we go now to Julian Opuni, who worked in the UK for many years before relocating to Ghana. Julian, the same question. Please introduce yourself and tell us where you are.
Thank you, Ambassador. So I'm Julian Opuni. I'm currently the Managing Director of Fidelity Bank here in Ghana. And I moved back to Ghana about 8 years ago. And prior to that, I was in the UK for just over 20 years, which at that time was more than half my life. I was initially born in the UK, and then I moved to Ghana, and then went back and worked in the banking sector. So I was with Lloyds Bank in the UK for just under 20 years, and then joined Fidelity. And in the last couple of years, I took over the helm of affairs here. With regards to being a victim of racism, I think, yes, and varying extremes as well. So I have an example of an actual physical threat, which meant police intervention, which was just on a street where someone just came up and attacked myself and my brothers, to verbal on the street where someone walks up to me and says, how many more of you can we take on the through the borders of this country? So there's that extreme. And in your mind, you're thinking, I've probably paid more taxes in the last 10 years than you probably have, whatever. And then there's the subtle elements, which is normally in the work environment. And normally, I think some of the worst case scenarios are the ones that are couched as jokes in the work environment, where there's the subtlety actually means that's what people are saying. What people are saying is really what they're thinking. So an example, I remember of someone passed a comment and said, oh, your head looks like it was made to carry things. But I'm talking about the early 90s here. Not that, it's changed significantly, but that was the environment I was in. I think in the workplace, there's also been an element of career impact. I remember I couldn't take my first branch management position in a certain part of London because it would have been deemed unacceptable to have a Black person in what was seen as a fairly affluent and predominantly white area. And it was told to me in a very subtle way until a more appropriate position was found for me to take. So there's been varying elements in the past, but I don't really like going into the details, because I think it's not succumbing to it, but actually using that as a strength to drive ourselves forward. With regards to challenges, moving to Ghana, I think one of the key ones I would say are around a mindset change and your ability to, consciously create a mindset change about the pace of life and the attitude of people in in Ghana. I don't want to, there's a Ghanaian way of doing things, and people like to give the impression it's the wrong way of doing things. There are some wrong things, but there's some things that are just Ghanaian and need to be accepted. And once you get into that state of mind where you understand that certain things are just to do with the country you return to, it's easier to live. I think realities of adult life, because I lived here when I was a lot younger, and realities of adult life and in a working environment, there was a bit of a cultural shock. And for some people that move in, it's not the same as what it was when you were living at home with your parents and, didn't pay bills, etc. When you go into adulthood and you move into Ghana, it's a totally different ball game. And that cultural shock also needs to be managed, which can be a bit of a challenge. And then there's the final bit, which is almost as if the same story. There's a certain journey to acceptance in the local environment, because there are people who will still see you as from outside of Ghana or didn't predominantly spend your life here. And so you will have the odd jokes of, London boy, this, that, and the other. But that's normally just, in my view, a phase that you go through, and you also don't let that have an impact. On the joys, I think, for me, the key one is the fact that in an environment like Ghana, which I call a greenfield, limitations are really driven by attitude and competence, and not a lot less by your race or your color. And if you can get over that, then it means that you go over a lot more hurdles. I don't want to pretend that there isn't also an element of background impact and class impact in Ghana, and so people shouldn't be blind to that fact, but it's not to the extremities that we will probably see where it's based on color boundaries. And obviously the softer things, weather, family, and a holiday every weekend, inadvertently.
Brilliant. Thank you, Julian, for a very, very useful explanation of your experiences both in the UK and in Ghana. And now we move to a very special lady, Shawn Colo, who moved to Ghana in the year of return from Atlanta, Georgia. So I'd like to give the floor to Shawn. Please introduce yourself, tell us where you come from, and please answer the questions.
Yes, hello, I am Shawn Colo here from Atlanta, Georgia, born and raised, and we live here now in Ghana. And have I been a victim of racism? Personally, no, but I've seen it with my family. I have 4 brothers who have all been pulled over and harassed and just really treated very, very bad. I've seen some things. So with the police and even in corporate America, I've seen the way that Black men were treated in corporate America. And it was just blind, it was just blatant racism. So personally, no, but seeing it and the fact that it's been my brothers, really traumatizes you a bit. So living here in Ghana has kind of helped me heal that trauma. In a sense, I've been arrested here, but it's a different kind of arrest. It's more of a conversation. It's more of getting an understanding. And to me, it's changed my mindset to a more free mindset. I'm not as nervous. I'm not as worried about whether my husband will be pulled over by the police and harassed and possibly brutalized or murdered. And I have 3 boys. And so one of the reasons why we left Atlanta because I have 3 Black boys and I just didn't want to raise them in that system. There's a slave mentality that is still there, unfortunately. So here, when I say freedom, it's a different kind of freedom. It's a freedom, I don't have to worry so much about my kids and their future. The knowledge that is here, the African history that I never received, is definitely something I'm thankful for. There are so many different aspects to the freedom that I feel. although there are some challenges, I've told this story. Someone was selling bread to our house, and the lady called me. She said, "Oh, you're white." And of course, being, you know, a Black woman from America, I'm like, no, wait a minute. I was very taken back, and I was very upset with her for calling me a white person. And until I've gotten to know the locals and gotten a better understanding as to what she meant. So that's what I mean by the freedom. Like, I understand it. I'm thankful for it. It's a breath of fresh air. It's less stressful. I'm thankful. The opportunities, like studying, I've been studying holistic wellness and have owned a juicing company in Atlanta. And the challenges of being an entrepreneur in Atlanta and being an entrepreneur here are totally different. So you move different. You get a different kind of support. It's not so much of a competition. It's more of a, when I eat, we all eat type of thing. That's something that we say in Atlanta. When you eat, I eat. So it's very comforting, I would say, being here in Ghana and learning the history and it gives you a sense of where you come from, because we didn't learn that in school. I guess that's my personal racism that I received, that I didn't learn anything about Africa. They don't talk about that. All we know is we were slaves and we fought for civil rights, basically. So the fact that I can go to Elmina and show my boys what happened, the fact that I can see kings and queens here, the level of respect that we show towards each other here, I'm thankful for it. So being in Ghana has truly opened my mind, opened my life. It just gave me all my life back. And I'm thankful for it. I'm very, very thankful for it. So there are some challenges. Things are a little bit slower, but it's giving me patience, and it's helpful. It's helpful when you deal with things that are bigger or things that are that we still deal with in the States. So I'm thankful. I'm just very, very thankful for the experience, and I'm excited to create healing and wellness for the women here in Ghana. So stay tuned and we'll see.
Thank you so much, Shawn, for that really passionate testimony about your life both in America and in Ghana. I actually got goosebumps when you talked about your 3 Black boys and them being the reason for why you moved to Africa. So our last panelist is Adewale Ajadi, who lived also, I think, in the UK and is now living in Nigeria. Adewale, please tell us more about yourself and
greetings.
Questions.
Greetings to everybody. Greetings, Ambassador. Well, I'm Nigerian, born, raised, went to the UK after I became a lawyer, and got into the reality of the UK, the exclusion. But it's very important to draw a distinction between the personal exclusion and the interpersonal pain that one feels with that, which is ever present in the world, and the systemic one, which is being talked about here. So I worked in the race relations industry, apart from being a playwright, being a judge, and doing a lot of other things, which were opportunities that the UK gave to me. But institutionally and systemically, the UK has inbuilt racism. I had a company that worked in diversity for about 20 years, introduced groundbreaking measures around institutional discrimination. And after practicing that across the world, in the US, the UK, and Europe generally, I came to realization that nothing was going to change fundamentally. Because the lie we tell ourselves is that discrimination and exclusion is because people don't mean to do something bad. Actually, there's self-interest in discrimination. There's self-interest in exclusion. The commercial and economic interests of different countries recognize that it is not because of superiority or inferiority that they exclude people, but because the capitalist system is based on scarcity. And in realizing that and coming to terms with that, I felt that I needed to go to where I came from. I'm from Ibadan in Nigeria. I wanted to go back home and try and see whether I could add value and become what I always tell other people to become an ancestor of note, leave a legacy of making a difference. And coming back to Africa was double-edged for me. I lost a lot of money because I came in, I would say a little bit arrogantly, and assumed that having lived in the UK implicitly, that I had a particular advantage over others. And I did not really take the time out to learn what did not work and what worked. So I lost the whole fortune. But I would say there's nothing greater than coming back to Nigeria for me. Firstly, because it gives me an opportunity to leave a legacy of exemplary and unique contribution to a great nation that might emerge from Nigeria, from a country to a nation. Secondly, because as I have my grandchildren, I just had one 3 weeks ago, I'm in a place to make sure that they don't experience what I've experienced in the world. Because what I have experienced is the lie that white supremacy tells us, that this is a game of civilization. It isn't. Humanity comes from Africa. So they're not telling us anything we don't know. But we need to unlearn the behavior of inferiority and learn the fact that humanity belongs to all of us. And I think that the pandemic is a wonderful opportunity for us to reposition and restructure that. So I'm leaving that in a way. And more exceptionally, the fact that I've been to most African countries, and I know that really deep inside, we are the future of humanity. We can do excellent new things that has not been done before. We certainly can move from scarcity to abundance. So I'm excited. I see this pandemic as a prospect of redefining the terms of engagement for the world. So that is it in a nutshell.
Brilliant philosophical contribution. I've really enjoyed the interventions, and I do have some follow-up questions, but I know we have some brilliant minds in the audience as well, and I don't want to shorten the time for the audience to ask questions or make comments. So I'm going to open the floor. You can either physically put up your hand, or there is a button where you can raise your hand if you want to ask a question or you want to make a contribution to the debate. And you can address your question generally or directly to any of the panelists. So at the moment, I don't see any hands up. Yes, so Hugh Kwashi, could you kindly unmute your mic and ask your question?
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Hugh Kwashi. I'm here in London, and I'm delighted to be attending this particular webinar. Specifically, I just wanted to ask Adewale to enlarge on a comment that he made just now about unlearning the behavior of inferiority. I think that was the phrase that you used. I ask this because it's always seemed to me that we have put ourselves at a disadvantage by buying into, if you like, inherited and imported systems of thought and behavior, not just the capitalist system of doing business, the profit maximization ethos, but also the religions that have come with colonialism. I just wanted to ask you to enlarge on what you meant by the behavior of inferiority.
Well, thank you very much. It's a very powerful question. If I would start with the religious thing, and I'm trying to make it brief. Firstly, the African mind, or our general opinion, is Christianity is a religion that was imported into Africa. Well, that's not true. The oldest Christian civilizations are Africans from Ethiopia downwards. In fact, up to the Sudan had some of the oldest Christian civilizations. And if you look in the Bible, you'd see many, many references to African countries in different guises. So it's certainly not true so that's one case of learning. But you know, schooling is confused with education, and schooling is not education. The framework of schooling is to give a particular kind of information. To get ourselves truly educated, we have to know definitely who we are, where we're coming from. So to buy into the concept of race itself is to be uneducated. Race doesn't exist. If there was ever anything called race, it is that all humanity comes from Africa, both paleontologically, both historically, both etymologically, are all African. And if everybody that is in the world is descended from Africans, then they are all Africans. So how can there be different races? So if you start to unpack these things and start to understand, then we start to move away from reactive development that confuses modernization with westernization, and helps us to recognize that Africanization can be modernization. And then we start to move into the space where we start to investigate things differently. So we're in a pandemic, which has not affected the African continent as it was predicted, but we have not really unpacked why it is not. Is it a genetic issue? Is it the kind of nature of the virus that has come before us? And then we're being asked to react to this issue of vaccines, and we're reacting to the scarcity of vaccines. So that means the system of some people having and some people not having has become a pattern. And if you look at most African communities, you see that originally we are more interdependent than we have become. So really and truly, it's really exploring the things you suggested, Mr. Kwashi, and also exploring other ways of learning. And I'll end this by saying that in Nigeria, for example, our curriculum is based on American curriculum system that was developed in the 1950s. That's not shifted fundamentally. I mean, there has to be a rethink of curriculum across the continent. And we should think in terms of curriculum, giving us ourselves viability and option, learning about our own systems of knowledge from across the board, healing systems, skill systems, incredible writing systems, and being able to apply that and bring those up to date. So one final point is that across Africa, our design principles are based on fractal geometry. That in itself is the system that the universe is based on. Why aren't we applying that more likely? Why are we always creating linear systems rather than those kinds of fractal systems that we have used in our fabrics, we have used in our carvings, we have used in our art? So really, really opening up knowledge into the space where we can be exceptional rather than imitations.
Brilliant. Thank you, Adewale. That was a very insightful answer to the question. We have a question from Pierre de Gaitan. He's former deputy mayor of Bordeaux, and was the chair of the France-Africa Summit for 2020, which was disrupted because of COVID. Pierre de Gaitan was also at the HACSA Summit 2019. Pierre, please introduce yourself, tell us where you are and who you are, and ask your question. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Her Excellency. I think you have already said all I could say about myself. So
you are originally from Cameroon.
From Cameroon, yeah. I was born in Cameroon. And then I came to France and precisely to Bordeaux in the southwest of France for law studies. And then I did my PhD here in Bordeaux. And after I worked as a member of the former Prime Minister Alain Juppé's office. And then after in 2014, I became an elected member as a deputy mayor, particularly in charge of African affairs. And that was the opportunity for me to meet a great woman, Ambassador Joanna Spaditier in Bordeaux. And then what I wanted only to share a testimony, if I can say, as a Black African elected member in the political life in France. One of the prejudices I noticed in the political world in France, even if I was a deputy mayor, they always say to me, "Oh, Mr. Pierre, the future president of Cameroon." And then I always told them, "No, I'm not in Cameroon. I'm in Bordeaux, and I'm a deputy mayor in Bordeaux. I'm not. I don't live in Africa." So that was a kind of systemic racism. They always. I was working with them. I was doing electoral campaigns. I won the campaign in the party, in the right party in Bordeaux. I was the number 2 of the party in Bordeaux. But they always say, "Oh, future president of Cameroon, future president Cameroon." I don't know. I don't want to be a president of Cameroon. Perhaps to be a mayor of Bordeaux, not a president of Cameroon. So that was a kind of testimony I want to share with you. The lesson is that as diaspora, we need African talents to go back to Africa and raise Africa, because if Africa is raising, we as African diaspora will feel good. So that's testimony I wanted to share with you.
If I may, I would like to react to Pierre's comment, because first of all, you know, it's a sad thing, because they don't even imagine Pierre being the president of France. You see, so that's what we're suffering. And the second thing is, I mean, actually, we have to stand by the example. We really have to show, because I mean, what Pierre is expressing, I've suffered also this when I was in Paris. Like, people look down to us, you know, and when they see us as educated, well-bred, and with some competencies, it's as if we were an exception. So I think it's hard time we really show that example. I think we need to speak out. I think people need to see those kind of example, that, you know, we're not an exception, and that the continent is filled with talented people who are sophisticated, and who have no complex. I think now is the time also for the next generation to be proud of what it is, and to stand for a cause, and to have an impact, because otherwise those kind of things will still go on and go on and go on. And I think now is the right moment, the right momentum. The Africa is also leading a certain example when we look at the COVID situation. We don't have this kind of sanitary issues here. So we need to tell our stories properly, so that eventually we will be heard.
Thank you, Laureen, for that intervention. Inokefa has his hand up. Adewale, did you want to react to that last one before we move to Inokefa?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we should avoid validation. The game that has been played across the world is that Africans always seek the validation of Western powers, whether it be country or individuals. And the less we seek the validation of others, the more we set standards, like was said at the last meeting, the standards of what is important to us, what perpetuates African life, what elongates African lives, what gives quality of life to our people. The more we do those things independent of the validation of others, the more we would be healthier, because it's very unhealthy to seek the validation of others.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I think actually Laureen is a fantastic example of somebody who is creating her own path and looking to Africa for her future. So thank you both. And moving now to Enoch Efa, could you kindly introduce yourself? Tell us who you are. I see some medals and belts behind you in your picture. So give us a thorough understanding of who you are, what you've achieved, and then you can make your comment or ask your question.
Hi, thank you, Ambassador. Hi, everybody. My name is Enoch Efa. Yes, as you can see, I have some medals, but my best medals is to be proud of a son of Africa. And my first trip in Ghana was in 2004. And since then, since that date, I never lose a fight. Why? When I went to Ghana, it was my first trip, and I didn't even know my history. And I was searching for my family because I didn't even know where my family were. And I wanted to know where my mother was buried. And when I went there and I discovered my history, I came back, I registered to a business school, and I decided to become world champion. And in 2005, I became world champion for my first time. I get my diplomas 3 years after. And in 2017, I met Ambassador Zvanica, and that changed my life because she made me link people, very interested people like you, Kwache, Miss Clark, Christine, Mr. Lopez, Ambassador, excuse me for my English, and I have also emotion to talk with you like that. And since then, I decided to do my company from Ghana. Now I train leaders. Last November, I went to Ghana and I decided to test a program for the Vinci Group, the top leaders of Vinci Group from Ghana. And I decided to do it from Labadi. And they were afraid of something. They asked me, oh, do you have enough electricity there? Do you have enough things to do the training online? Are you sure, Enoch? And I say, yes, I'm really sure. I did the training, and now I have a contract to train the leaders of Vinci for 2021. And I decided to come on the 2nd of January to set things, and decided to develop my company from Ghana. I have opened my account in Fidelity Bank, and I really want you to share that message that we need to go back to Africa to feel the energy and do our best. We have a lot of persons who love Africa who are even not Black, but the message must be shared for everybody. So thank you for your inspiration. Thank you, Ambassador. And I hope also I will meet you because you are really inspiring.
Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Enoch, for your contribution. So the floor is open for any more contributions or questions. I see Christine Diane.
Hello, everybody. I'm Christine Diane. I'm a pharmacist in Paris. I want to say about all I learned from Ghana, because I was there with Ambassador Joanna. And it was for me the beginning of a proudness of, I was proud about my origin. I'm Guinean, but the fact is that I want to do more for my continent, for Africa. And I think in my generation, I am mother, I am grandmother. I think that the best I can leave to all of the generation and all those who will come after, the children, the grandchildren, make them know their continent, where they come from, where they are too, because it's important that they take place where they are, wherever they are in the world, but never forget where they come from and where they will go after. And the proudness of all we are with the mixed, with all what we represent in the education, in the learning, the profession that we have. Never forget where we come from, and do what the racism come when we are not proud of what we are. And what say Enoch and what say Pierre de Gailletan, or all the floor, Chantrella, means that we must know about where we come from, to know where we go. It's a little word like that, but it's important, where we come from, where we are, and where we go. But with many, many years between all these words. Excuse me for my English. And I'm so thankful to HACSA, and I want to be a part of this movement. And I think it will be for the future something very, very important for all generations.
Thank you, Christine, for that passionate contribution. Our Francophone brothers and sisters are really stealing the show today. So I hope that the Anglophone ones take up the challenge. And I see Geneva Opong, your hand is up. Could you please make your comment or ask your question? And please introduce yourself.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Geneva. I'm currently an analyst at Goldman Sachs and within the investment banking division. I had a question for Lorraine and Julian. But
where are you talking from, Geneva?
From New Jersey. I was born and raised in New Jersey. So speaking from there. I wanted to first and foremost thank all the panelists for some of the phenomenal points they made. I think for me, as someone who's relatively young and really trying to inform the kind of leader I want to be, and the representation that I want to have, some of these points were really impactful for me. My question is for Julian, and I guess also Laureen, in the sense that you guys both have a background in corporate America. How did you ultimately decide that you wanted to leave versus staying? Because I think for someone who's more junior, representation is so important. So how do you decide between combating some of the systematic racism and oppression and microaggressions and ultimately deciding to leave versus stay, and kind of understanding that representation also is an impact? So just curious on how you kind of thought about those two paths.
Okay, I'll start off. Mine was more UK than the US. I know that you're asking the question about corporate America, but I think it was a gradual process for me. I had a personal goal, I'll say, which drove a lot of what I wanted to do. I did want to be back in Ghana before I turned 40, and I managed to reach that at 39. And I only did that because someone once told me that if you don't set a milestone at which point you may want to make a change in your life and actually have the impact that you want, it's very, very difficult, because you keep nudging it forward and waiting for the opportune moment for that to happen. So that was one of the key things that drove it. I came to an early realization also in the environment I was working in, that there were obvious limitations to potential aspiration of where I could potentially, I could get to. And the reality of that has been evident for my career in the UK and with the bank. A lot of mine was also driven by peers, and it's so important, especially for the younger ones in the diaspora. I think you need to really expose yourself and have as many experiences with the right type of people who are in the country that you choose to go to or on the continent, because it gives you a different face of the reality that you could be part of, so that you don't work with the narratives that you see, which is normally very general or social media kind of driven, because I think there's a lot out there that sometimes sends the wrong message. And I really like a lot of what Adewale was saying around the education and Africanization and the wrong interpretation of what development really is. It really hits home. And once I moved to Ghana, I then realized, like I said earlier on, that the color and those concerns I had were no longer the potential limitations or the challenges I'd have to go over. It was really about, you know, ensuring that I could achieve that dream of surpassing what I think I could have done in a previous environment. It doesn't mean it's easier, because I always want to say to people in the diaspora that going back to Africa, it's not an easier journey. It's just a different type of journey, and the mindset is so important. And it's, for me, a lot more enjoyable, because you get to a certain point where you realize that you've made the right decision, you know, making that step. And, you know, in line with what they were saying on the validation, it's a validation of my own personal measures as opposed to what others or, you know, a certain race would expect for me. And that gives a certain sense of satisfaction as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Julian, for your answer, which was directly to the point. And we have another hand up. It's Lozano Tangana. Law, please introduce yourself. Tell us where you work, what you do, which country or city you're in, and ask your question, please, or make your contribution.
Yes, I just want to make a short contribution. Hello, Joanna. My name is Lozano Tangana, but Lopez. I'm from Congo, and I'm from West Indies. So I'm from West Indies also. And
where in the West Indies?
Guadeloupe, and Martinique also. And I'm a budget officer in UNESCO. I'm working in UNESCO. I just want to mention that I grew up in Africa, and it was a great experience in my life. And since 1980, I'm living in France. And I had all the concern to bring my kids in Africa since they're born. My eldest son is born in 1997. And the last one, Anais, is born in 2006. So it was important for me to bring them to Africa and to Congo and to have the feeling of all our roots, if I can say, and the same for West Indies. And I had a great, if I can say, bouleversement, I don't know the term in English, when I went in Ghana 2 years ago to participate to this summit. And my reference is Almina, and the links with Almina and West Indies. My mother was from West Indies, my dad is from Congo. And my objective, I'm a civil servant actually in the UN organization. So I have my droit de réserve. That's, you know, I cannot make a lot to bring something for Africa and to make, but my objective within, I think, 5 years, and to give my contribution to help Africa and to make the bridge between Africa and West Indies. And just to finish, when I went to Ghana, to Almina, I saw all these people coming from the US and every country, because Ghana, it's like a hub where you can see different countries where are coming there, but no people from West Indies. And I think it's my challenge, and I think I will do it. I cannot do it for the moment, but it's in my objective to try to make the bridge and to play a role in that. Okay, that's it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Law. We can't wait for you to help us to connect with the people in the West Indies, and
exactly.
Especially the Francophone people in the West Indies, because that's even harder for us to reach out. But I'm delighted to tell you that HACSA has now representatives in Antigua and Trinidad and Tobago.
Wow. Good.
And so we would love to have a representative in Guadeloupe and Martinique. We don't need to wait until you're retired to get that.
I will try. I will see.
So please connect us. Please
will
connect
see.
us to Martinique and Guadeloupe, Law.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
I do my best for you guys.
Brilliant.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
And I see Grace Clark with her hand up. Grace Clark, can you kindly unmute your microphone and tell us where you are and what you do, and give us your contribution, please.
My name is Grace. I'm here in California. Martha, I see you. I'm not alone. And I'm a nurse educator at a local university here. My question is for Shawn. Each time we meet, you seem very happy to move to Ghana. I just want to know if it's a process or a journey you would recommend for other African Americans, and why would you tell them to move to Ghana?
Absolutely. Hands down, absolutely. So I've been communicating with other African Americans, and they're really, really interested, especially with the political atmosphere in America right now. So what I would say is, we didn't think hard and we didn't think long. It wasn't easy. You become very resourceful and very tough, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it. A peace of mind, because in the US, you start to see the slave mentality. When I say slave mentality, I mean like you put people on a pedestal of different races, and so you start to diminish yourself. You don't realize the power that you really have within. And I can honestly and truly say I have tapped into all of the resources here, all of the energy here. It's a different feeling. When they say, you hear year of return and you return home and they welcome you in Akwaba, you feel it. You really feel it. It's a difference. It's a huge difference. We started saving and preparing for this journey about 2 or 3 years ago. And it was easier than we thought. We thought it would be difficult. We thought it was going to be super expensive. We thought that, my whole thought on Africa, the continent in general, whether it's Ghana, whether it's Guinea, whether it's Cameroon, wherever it is totally different from the reality. Because as a child, when we saw movies of Africa, it was always, people run around naked with spears. So you don't realize that this, Ghana is developing and has developed into a beautiful place. So with the racism that's going on in America, with even what's going on here everywhere around the world, I would say, here I feel safe. I feel the security. I feel the support. I feel the history, and I'm thankful for the history. And it's given me the confidence that you get. It's gone to a whole nother level. I don't know if I can explain that. And even for the young lady in New Jersey, I worked in corporate America as well. And I've gone to, not meetings, but I've gone to meet my husband at his job, and the way they take care of each other, it's more of a community. It's not a competition amongst each other. It's when they say sister, they mean it. When they call you, they don't know your name, they call you sister or auntie. So it created a different sense of family that I definitely appreciate and I'm thankful for. And I definitely appreciate it because my boys experience a different life here. They are free. They're so much more freer. I don't have to worry about security as much for me. So absolutely, just don't think so hard. Just do it. If you want me to go into detail as to like how we started saving, you cut Netflix, that's money for your suitcases, back to school sales. We packed everything in a suitcase. We didn't ship boxes, we didn't ship anything. Everything that we have came with us on the plane in suitcases. So it's so worth it. I don't even know. I can't even begin to fully explain how I feel being here. I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful. And HACSA has been such a big part of that I appreciate. So yeah, just do it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Shawn, for that resounding validation of HACSA and of your move to Africa. And we have another hand up, and that's Karimaola.
My name's Karimaola. I'm speaking from London, actually my career progression is very similar to Laureen's, actually, and Julian's, I must say, because I grew up in England, and like him, born in England. Spent time, was sent to Nigeria as a child and then came back to England and then forged a career ever since. And my career now involves investing across Africa. So I feel very privileged to have that role. And the reason I put my hand up actually is not just necessarily to ask a question, but actually to say thank you to Julian, to Laureen, to Shawn, because there are a number of things that came up during the course of this discussion that I think are exceedingly important. I think, and the big one, but I think, I forgot, I must, and the big one is Adewale actually saying not seeking validation through external opinions, because I think that's very, very important. The narrative has to be owned by Africans. Because otherwise history has been written by the victors. And, certainly in my experience growing up, I mean, I had a very similar upbringing to Julian in the sense I was born in England, brought up in London. And when I was at school, very often I was the minority in my school. And there was prejudice. I wouldn't say racist. I didn't have the kind of racism of being stopped or anything, but I had the sort of that institutional prejudice where a teacher once mocked me for talking about Africa. And so one of my biggest armor, I should say, or my biggest arsenal was actually the fact that my father was a great history. He believed in history of Africa. And even though we were growing up in London, he equipped us with that. And so I remember taking a book in once about the knock culture, where, my dad had said, you need to go in there and you need to tell them that the knock culture, they were building terracotta, beautiful sculptures when Brits were still basically slaves to the Romans. And to be able to basically, as a child in London, be able to go in with the book and the history and to be able to say that is actually incredibly empowering. So a big part of that. And so for me growing up, that idea of my validation not coming from the narrative set by the people who, a time when, especially during the beginning of the slave trade, when it became very important to rewrite what was what actuality is. And so where we are today is, as Adewale said, Africa is the birthplace of civilization, but actually it's a bit more than that. Africa is also the birthplace, or actually she said it was the birthplace of humanity, but it's also the birthplace of civilization. It is the place where there are a number of scientific marvels, artistic, cultural, which are still the marvels of the globe today. It's just that we're not given, nobody writes about that anymore. And so when people think about the Egyptian, what did the Egyptians ever do? Everybody talks about the Egyptian empire, but we don't even think of it as Black. We think of it sometimes as, sort of maybe North African or even sometimes Maghrebin, but actually, we didn't have Islam come to Africa until around the 7th century. And a number of dynasties of Egyptian dynasties were actually based in Sudan. They were Nubian. When you think about the Songhai Empire that basically existed well before anybody white ever arrived in Africa, or even the ancient empire of Ghana. And there's a lot of legacy that's left behind, which people are not aware about, but everybody on this call probably is, but we have a younger generation, and it's not, and that generation, and those include my cousins who actually live in Lagos and who live in Lagos, and they're not aware of that. And so I think there is an element of having to now, now in this age of Black Lives Matter, to actually re-own and reclaim that legacy, because that actually forms sometimes how we feel about each other, especially a younger generation in future. And that legacy belongs to us. So I just want, I think when I hear about it today, that validation point is important, and it's important not just for young Africans who are growing up, because the world is now, we're now a global village, but there's still the question is what the Africans ever do for the world civilization, in enormous amount, frankly. And then when it comes even to the African diaspora, there are people who come, I talk about the Francophone Africans among us will know about Alexandre Dumas and his great grandfather, who was basically one of the most senior generals in France at revolutionary France, and his son went on to write the Three Musketeers. And during the time that he was doing that, people like David Hume, who we basically see as one of the kind of major leads of scientific thinking in the 18th century, was writing that Negroes never achieved anything, they're not capable of civilization. And at the same time, we actually had African diaspora fighting wars, writing great books. Similarly, we also have another Gannibal, which Petrov Gannibal in Russia, raised by Peter the Great, was given as a slave to Peter the Great, was freed, became one of the preeminent engineers, and actually people like Descartes in France wrote about him. This was all in the 18th century. Nobody owns that, nobody talks about it, and actually just at the point where it became very important to justify slavery, the narrative of what the Negro, Black, African diaspora is capable of changed, and that has not stopped. And so we need a part of this movement has to be to continue to own that narrative, so that that validation, especially for the younger generation, whether it's Africa diaspora or young Africans on the continent, begin to know that they basically are indeed the birthplace of not just humanity, but also civilization, and some of the greatest things that basically have led where we are today.
Wow, Karima, thank you so much. That was really worth listening to. Thank God you had the courage to come on camera to give us that passionate contribution, which is worth much more than being camera ready. So I'm very, very grateful for that interjection. We have another hand up, and that's Shawn Colo.
Hello, thank you so much for having me today in this webinar. I heard everything that you guys said, and that's very inspiring and very interesting. So my wife said everything about what we wanted, the reason why we came. What I wanted to add also is from the responsibility piece. So we had a very important question that was, okay, so if I'm living in the US and I want to go to Africa, how do I go there? Is it the right time, now or later, when I retire, when I don't retire? And I think that we have a responsibility. I think that to paraphrase a story of the wolf that we feed grows. So the country that we feed grows as well. So we pay taxes in a country in the US, whether it's in France, in the US, in Luxembourg, in the UK, and all these places. And the thing is that the country grows faster than the country than the continent of Africa, for example. So when we go outside in Paris at night, or in the US at night, and we drive on the road, we see African-American workers or African workers in Paris working on the roads to improve the things. And when we go to Africa, a lot of people from the diaspora will ask, okay, so why is it that the roads are not perfect? Why is it that things need to be changed, need to be fixed, need to be improved? And I think that we have a responsibility. I think that at some point, we need to make a decision. We have one life. What is it that we want to do? How do we want to impact our life? And again, I want to repeat that the country that we feed grows. If we don't feed, or if the continent in this case, and the beautiful thing about Africa, Ambassador Zvaneker knows the company where I work today, and the beautiful thing is that we can grow. We can create a company in different countries in Africa. We can connect with different people, and I feel like we are brothers. I was with one of my friends from Equatorial Guinea this morning that called me in Spanish. I was with some friends from Côte d'Ivoire that called me earlier in French. I have friends in Ghana, in Nigeria. But the thing is that there's still this feeling of brotherhood that that helps us grow faster. So that's the contribution that I wanted to give. We have so much to bring to Africa as a continent, and if all the bright brains that we know abroad would contribute to doing something great like HACSA, for example, that would make an amazing impact on the continent and in the future that we want for our kids and the people that come after us.
Thank you so much, Charles Colo. I think, oh wow, and we have little Sven on the lap of Laureen as well. Hello, Sven, how are you?
It's Lynn, actually.
Oh, it's Lynn. Okay, sorry. Hello, Lynn, how are you? So we have come to the end of the webinar. If somebody desperately wants to say something, I'll allow it, but otherwise, Adewale, did you want to have a last word?
Oh, well, one deep reflection we must have is that it's a wonderful opportunity for all of us. What the pandemic has shown us is that the existing system does not work. And we have to do a distinction between systemic change and interpersonal change. We need systemic change. The world needs a systemic change. The planet is dying. The existing system of capitalism is destroying and polarizing people. And to be honest with you, the answer has to come from us. So we must take this opportunity now and for our children and our grandchildren to do a different thing, to make sure that we come out of this with a better understanding. And if we as Africans don't do that, I don't know who will.
Brilliant. Some last words from Shawn, Julian, Laureen. Last words, Julian?
No, thanks. I think it's been extremely informative for all of us, and increasing the focus on the discussion that matters to us. Sometimes we say things in our minds that are normally hidden in the environment because it's not acceptable to say it, and so to create the environment where we can have that sort of conversation is quite refreshing. I think one thing I will say is that dialogue is good, but action is better. And if nothing at all, if we all try and find that opportunity to impact on others, to make sure the story we're all hoping to write comes into reality, because even in your little area of influence and authority, you can make a change. And even if it's about education, to someone who hasn't realized the importance of knowing where they come from and how much strength they have, based on them being able to harness that and operate in the right environment, that will create the change that we're looking for.
Thank you, Julian. That's what HACSA is all about, action. So we do talk, but then we do take action. Shawn, do you have any last words?
Yes, to piggyback on what Julian says, I've been to so many panels, to so many conferences discussing the same thing, and I always ask, okay, what do we do next? For everyone that is considering coming back, take baby steps. What can you do next? The next generation is depending on us. Our children, the future is in Africa, and whether it's in Ghana, whether it's in Guinea, Nigeria, wherever, it's here. So yes, take actions, baby steps. If you're preparing and trying to move here, take baby steps and do the best you can. That's what I would say, that definitely take action. That's really very, very important for our next generation. Our actions.
Thank you. Thank you, Shawn. And Laureen, last word. You have the last word, actually.
No, thank you so much. I think, as Julian said, knowing where you come from is absolutely critical to succeed in life and to know where we're going. And I think we really need to understand our whys, what we do stand for, what's our goal in life. And mine is really, you know, to have an impact and to show that out of Africa can come beauty and excellence, competence, creativity. I'm doing also this for my children. And today I'm really proud to see that my son, who's half Serbian, Swedish, Ivorian, is actually really strong in his Ivorian roots and is growing in confidence. And that's the next generation. That's those kind of education that will take us very far. So taking action, baby step, having an impact, know our why, what we do stand for is the only way whereby we can help the continent for good. So I will call, it's a call to any of us from where we do stand, whether it's on the continent or outside from the diaspora, we need to take our actions to really act in favor of the sustainable development of our continent. Thank you.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. We are one human race. We are brothers and sisters. We shouldn't seek validation from anybody. We should take action. These are some of the messages we have received in this webinar. I'd like to thank our panelists for their passion and their intellect and sharing their experiences with us. We are so grateful. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks again to our panelists, our team at the back end, making sure everything went smoothly. And our participants for all your brilliant contributions and all your wonderful questions, which animated and made this webinar one of the best ever. Thank you.